Recording start.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. 258. I'm sorry. Sweta ma'am,
Sir, Veera sir, I wish you welcome. And who is going to introduce the speaker, sir?
Yes. Sure, sir. Ekta ma'am can be willing to do the intro.
Okay, then I will welcome, sir. Very good evening, and it's an immense pleasure from our side, from the core team members and the host institution, Department of Psychology, the American College, Madurai, and our associating institution, Meta School of Social Work, International Center for Clinical Psychology and Psychotherapy, Germany, M.H. Chalamuthi Institute of Mental Health, Madurai, Red Pond Education Psychological Research Center, Madurai, Psychoanalytical Association, Turkey. And on behalf of the participant and the core team member, I welcome today's speaker, Ms. Sweta, and she's a clinical psychologist from Mangalore. She's going to speak about let's open the key to child's world, play therapy. Even still, even though I come from the category of adult, I love to play most of the time. And we are going to hear a lot about the topic, and I'm eagerly waiting for that. Now I request our core team member, the founder of Self Space, Ekta Jain, to introduce the speaker to the participants over here. Over to you, Ekta.
Just a second. So, am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. It gives me immense pleasure today to introduce a very good friend of mine, Shweta, into our forum today. Shweta has completed her master's in clinical psychology from Christ University, Bangalore, and she did her MPhil in clinical psychology from NIMHANS, Bangalore. She's currently a private practitioner in Mangalore, who takes online as well as offline sessions. She has worked as a lecturer in various fields and has taught students in the field of psychology. Her research interest lies in the area of issues of children and adolescents. So we do have a specialist today with us here. She believes that play is a child's natural form of expression, and it's crucial to child's mental health and development. So we are going to benefit a lot in understanding how play plays a major role in understanding child's mental health. So over to you, Shweta, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ekta, for that wonderful introduction. So today, as we all know, we'll be talking about play therapy. So we all know about play, we all know about therapy. So what if these two things are combined? What happens with this is called as play therapy. So let me just start with one activity that I would wish to introduce. So if whoever is interested here, if you all are able to answer, please do answer. If not, you all can write it in chat box as well. So what is your favorite play and why? In your childhood as well as now, if you think in your whole life, if you think about it, what is your favorite play and why? So you can write it in your chat box, or you can just answer it to yourself, or if you wish to talk about it, that's also good. So what I'm trying to understand is if there is any favorite game that you like and why. So if you have answered it for yourself also, it is okay. So the next question is, do you feel that you have had enough time in your life or childhood to play? Have you felt that you have had enough time, or do you still feel like it is not enough? I still wish to play. Okay, I can see answers like basketball, chess. Good. Okay. People have responded who have felt they have had enough time I still wish to play. Okay. Yes, have time with kids to play. Table tennis. Okay, we are getting a lot of answers. So, not had enough time. We did not have enough time. Okay, we can see that most of the answers are I haven't had enough time to play. Okay, so the next thing is, what is that one game you would wish to play if you were a child again? Used to play during summer vacation. We can get some memories here. That's nice. What is that one game you would wish to play if you were a child again? Kitchen set. Nice, that's interesting. Table tennis. Chess. Treasure hunt. Interesting. Carom. Okay. So we have just gone back to our childhood as well as currently retrospecting a little, we have got these answers. So if we look through these answers, we might have our own reasons why we like this game. What about the game that made us feel good? And why do we think that we didn't have enough time in our childhood to play? And why do we still feel like playing? At any age, at any point in life, we always feel like, or we might feel like playing. So, what is exactly play? So, play is a natural form of expression, the energy, the hidden resources, the hidden meaning, as well as sometimes conflicts that come throughout. So, play is something that is a natural form of expression for a child as well as sometimes for an adult as well. So, mainly for children, play is a natural form of expression where they express their emotions, their feelings, their thoughts, their inner resources. Yes. So there is this symbolic games like doctor, doctor or teacher, teacher. So these things we might have played in our childhood. And how did you feel playing that? So people used to play housey, housey, that is playing a house game symbolically. So, or a doctor, doctor, or a teacher, teacher. So these symbolic or representative play, how did you feel playing that in your childhood? So if you can think about it, reflect about it, we'll talk about it at the end of our session and discussion so that we'll understand a little more about what are these types of games and how does it help us or how does it help a child. Okay. So if there are any more answers, feel free to write in the discussion box and we'll discuss at the end. So what exactly is child psychotherapy? So we'll start with understanding child psychotherapy and then we'll move on to play therapy. So child psychotherapy is a form of interaction between an adult therapist who is trained with working with children, who is a child psychotherapist, and a mutual agreement between the child where they come for a session once in a week where they spend time between 45 minutes to 1 hour. There are different modes and mediums of therapy, which could be communication or talk therapy, which could be play therapy, or which could be other different form of creative arts or therapy. So the modes are different, but all it conveys is just therapy between a child and an adult. But how do we introduce this to a child? So that's why this term called as feelings doctor. So we have heard a doctor for fever, we have heard a doctor for stomach pain or a doctor for some other major serious injury. But who is this feelings doctor? Feelings doctor is someone with whom I can talk about or express my feelings. So that is something that we can convey to a child. So psychotherapy is mainly a conversation between a therapist as well as a child, which can happen through different modes. It doesn't just need to be communication. There could be different medium and modes through which a child and a therapist can communicate. So this language is common between the child and therapist, through which the therapist understands what the child is going through, and then they try to work through whatever is going on with the child. So what if my child doesn't like to talk? So my child likes to talk, or my child doesn't like to talk. Talking is not the only medium of psychotherapy. So psychotherapy can be done through different ways and mediums. So which could be art, which could be in a sandbox, which could be through telling stories, which could be also through movement and dance. So there are different ways the child can express himself, which the therapist will try to understand. So it is still okay if the child is not interested to talk. There are different ways in which we work through in psychotherapy. So what will my child be helped with? So this is one of the major questions that parents come with. So I know that my child has these issues, but how do we work with this? Or how will you help with this? So mainly when children undergo some conflicts or some difficulties, sometimes they do express their concerns, which parents might not understand or might feel which is they're overthinking for their age or something else. So such concerns, or sometimes the child is not talking anything and the child is quiet and not expressing. So in such conditions, the child will be helped in expression and understanding of these concerns, and then working through with these concerns and how we can go forward. So it could be clinical conditions, or it could be normal day-to-day life situations or interpersonal relationships, or struggling with certain emotions which can be worked through. So what happens in a play therapy? So if you have this question, if the therapist is going to play with the child, and how does it help? So don't we also play with the child? So why is it different a therapist playing with a child, or why is it different a child playing in front of a therapist? And why is it different my child playing with me? Can't I do the same thing at home? So one thing here we need to understand is, so as we understand, sometimes parents don't understand the importance or value of play. As we know that child explores his world through play. He tries to understand his boundaries. He tries to understand what is world. He tries to understand different things through the world of play. So this is one reason play is very much crucial at a very young age, which develops through symbolic play, and later it goes to abstract play. So in this way, child tries to understand and it navigates in the development as well as different areas of life. So a trained therapist will help the child in exploring oneself and also understanding his emotions and relieving the distress that the child is facing through this process. So another thing about play is child is helped to rehearse new skills. It could be social skills, it could be cognitive problem solving skills, it could be skills that are creative and divergent thinking. So there are different types of thinking or different ways of skills which the child might not have explored in the real world. So play is a medium where the child tries to explore such things. So it helps in an overall development of child, where it could be cognitive, it could be affective, it could be emotional, it could be any other forms of development through which the child navigates its way through the child life and then to the adult life. So play has its own therapeutic value, which is helpful. So in play therapy, what exactly happens? So how does play therapy help to a child or to an individual? So mainly in play therapy, the child understands to respect himself, and also that the feelings that the child is going through, he tries to expresses it. And when such expression happens, the therapist accepts such expressions, accepts the feelings that child is going through. And this makes the child feel much more acceptable. For example, if the same emotion is displayed at home or at school, the child might be criticized and there could be a judgmental thinking. But when it comes to a play therapy setup with the therapist, the child will be accepted for his emotions and difficulties that the child is going through. where the therapist empathizes and is acceptable towards the child. So the child also learns to assume responsibility for oneself, understanding that his own actions will have his own consequences and how it can. So the child also learns to be creative and resourceful in confronting problems. So this once happened in my therapy setup where the child was using a lorry and the lorry's wheel broke. So the child used the fork from the kitchen set to set the wheel. So this itself shows that there could be creative and resourceful ways in confronting problems. So self-control and self-direction is another way through which child learns in play therapy. And mainly the child learns to make independent choices and responsible for those choices. The child express his feelings and thoughts, so and understand the metaphorical content of play. So this is the crucial aspect. Building rapport is a major aspect where the child feels he is acceptable. That is when the child starts expressing whatever he is feeling, which will be in a metaphorical way through a game or through an expression through which the therapist tries to understand what exactly is the meaning of this play and then understand the causes of that behavior and then go navigates through the mechanisms of change. So play therapy, if we see from theoretical background, there are two ways play therapy has developed. So the first thing, it was built due to the reason of child psychotherapy, that is helping and working with children to solve the difficulties or concerns that they are going through. Second one was child development. So in child development, how did it help the child? And these were one of the things, theoretical background for this. So if we see in child psychotherapy, what it was believed was it was a natural form of expression and it helped in occurrence of insight and working through. Through play, the child tried to understand his own problems, his own difficulties, and sometimes his own ways of coping the problems. And this itself helped in moving forward with the difficulties that the child is facing in the real world, and there was differences in the interpersonal relationships. Next, child psychotherapy also tried to work towards providing opportunities to learn and experiment. The child could be constrictive and not moving forward with things, where child psychotherapy tried to move through play therapy to help the child provide opportunities to learn and experiment. So this was the how it grew. And then child development, we tried to understand that play therapy helped mainly in cognitive and emotional development, helping the child to in complex problem solving or helping the child in expressing difficult emotions or emotions those were unacceptable outside. So that helped in facilitating and it helped in moving forward in child development area, and it also helped in general adjustment, how a child adjusts in general and how play therapy helps in this process, and mainly in developing coping strategies. So developing oneself and working through the difficulties that the child is facing and how it can resolve its own issues. The child learns these through the art of play. So, a little historical background on play therapy, if we try to understand. So, mainly it was Anna Freud and Melanie Klein who have come up with the psychodynamic and psychoanalytic aspects of play therapy. So, so there is a little difference in both of their perspectives and views, but we'll just try to understand the basics of what it is. So, according to Anna Freud, she believed mainly play is a substitute to free association. Free association, as we is talking freely about the concerns or whatever the person is feeling. In the same way, play is the form where child has its own free association. The child can do anything and everything that is allowed, and the child is expressing himself. Whereas Melanie Klein believed that value of play is as important as communication. It is just another form of communication. So the child is conveying something through its play. If your child is playing in a different way, it conveys something. If the child is not playing, it conveys something. So that itself is what Melanie Klein tried to say. So Anna Freud believed that it is a direct expression of fantasies and instincts. And Melanie Klein believed that it is unconscious processes are expressed in play. So the unconscious processes that a child is going through is expressed in the form of play. So another difference here that we can see is, according to Anna Freud, the therapist is more responsive and gratifying and work to develop positive attachment. But here, according to Melanie Klein, therapist continuously interprets child's play. Whatever the child is playing, so what is the reflective content of it? What is the interpretation? Melanie Klein believed that this needs to be done. So whereas Anna Freud believed that the defenses need to be respected. If the child is not explaining something or trying to hide something, such things needs to be respected. Melanie Klein didn't believe in that. She believed that the defenses, she did not believe in much of defenses. So what is the process of play therapy when it comes to a clinical setting? How do we go about it? So play therapy, in which situations we use, and what is the process of it? So first thing we need to understand, when it is play therapy, it is not done alone. It could be done adjunct to other therapy, or even if it is done alone, a complete thorough background is done to understand what are the concerns of the child. So a complete case history of the child is taken to understand the developmental perspective, which will give us what could be the concerns of the child. So next, the assessment is done. There could be various projective assessments, or there could be cognitive assessments like IQ assessment, which could help in understanding the child's ability, and the play is much more suited to helping understanding whatever the child's capability and whatever the child's concerns and difficulties are, to help in resolving these difficulties. So after that, there is a formulation that is done, which means to understand the cause or what is the concern, what could be the reason for the symptom that the child is showing. So understanding a developmental perspective and building a formulation which is more focused and theoretically integrated helps in structuring or helps in working towards symptom management, or helps in the positive development of the child. So there is a perfect plan that is developed, and then an approach is selected. Based on a proper approach that would suit the child's temperament or condition, a short-term or long-term plan is developed. So setting up of a room is another major task. So what sort of room it needs to be? Should we tailor-make the room? Should we keep what sort of play items in the room? So if the child is understimulated or overstimulated, what sort of play items need to be kept is something that we need to keep in mind. So usually sessions are once a week, 45 to 50 minutes, and play items are chosen based on the conditions of the child, and the session is structured according to the conditions of the child, and later the process of engagement, interpretation of the concerns, and then also set if that is required, which will be explained in detail. So now after one's history is done, next process is assessment. So what exactly is this assessment? We'll try to understand. So as I told, it could be structured or it could be a projective assessment that is done. So assessment is done to choose the appropriate form of play therapy. So in play therapy also, there are different schools of play. It could be CBT play therapy, it could be client-centered play therapy, or it could be psychodynamic. We need to understand what form of play therapy and intervention the child needs to be helped with. So for that reason, and case history and an assessment would give much more detail about the child. So, understand how the child sees, represents or sees the world, and what is the child's level or capacity of empathy. Can the child delay gratification? If the child is told that you can't have a chocolate now, you need to have it later after playing this or after doing this homework, is the child able to delay gratification? Are there some internalized conflicts that the child is facing, which could be different forms of conflicts? And is the child having enough coping resources, or what are the coping resources that the child has internally within himself? What is his resilience level? What is his capability? What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? So these things could be much more helpful. What is the level of self-esteem the child has? Any specific areas of cognitive and personality functioning that has some difficulties in the child? Or if there are no difficulties, how is it contributing in the healthy development of the child? So play is also used as a part of assessment process. So sometimes the child might not engage in interview. The child might not talk in the interview. During such times, we use during such times, we use some kind of scale or some kind of activity that would help in that understanding the child. So affect in play scale, that is one of the scale that is given by Russ. So in this scale, what happens is one of the methods which was used before. So in this scale, what happens is a neutral toy of puppet of boy and girl is given, and the child is allowed to play with the toy for 10 to 15 minutes in whichever way it likes. The whole play game is videotaped for 10 to 15 minutes, and then the themes that emerge between the toys or between the conversation or the way the child plays, that is analyzed. So if the child, one toy tells the another toy that I don't like you, this theme is taken, the underlying emotion is taken, and then it is analyzed. And along with the help of case history and other relevant details, this could be an additional information in understanding the concerns of child. So assessment of themes is done in this way. So then the target symptoms or troubled behavior of the child is understood, and the emphasis is mainly on the mechanisms of change. So, and then we determine how much play to utilize with this child. What is the ability of the child and how much play to utilize with the child? And then the nature and which sort of approach we use with the child is something that we see. So what happens in the process of play therapy? So usually first stage is mainly about initiation. How do we initiate with the child? So we allow, in a room is set where there are tools or where there are toys which could be based on the temperament of the child, which is tailor-made for every child, and then allow the child to choose the play that he wishes. So the child tries to test its boundary in the first session or in the initial sessions. How much of play is allowed? If I do something, what will the therapist say? Will the therapist stop me at some point? So testing boundaries is something that the child will try to do. If the child is restricted and not at all playing, then the therapist might have to pick something and give. At rare cases, the therapist might also have to join the play with the child. So clay and drawing materials are very good starters because these don't require much of talk, and the child is allowed to express himself freely through different mediums. So initiation is the first process which is very important, through which the child and therapist relationship is built. So kinds of play materials. So next we come to know that different children use different kinds of different media of expression. Even in play therapy, there are different forms and different kinds of tools that the child plays. So we need to have different kinds of items individually tailor-made. So some of the toys that we usually keep are, it could be a ball, it could be a kitchen set, it could be animals, it could be vehicles, it could be a lorry or a gun. Or sometimes we also try to understand a little more about the child by keeping puppets. So there could be different toys that we try to keep. And we also encourage the child if he wants to bring his own toy. So there will be drawing items, or sometimes they also keep sandbox, which is also much more helpful. So the child is also asked for suggestions in which the child gets much more ability. So there are different kinds of different methods of play therapy, as we have known. It could be a directive play therapy, or it could be a non-directive play therapy. So a directive play therapy like CBT, where they try to structure the session and they try to keep the items, and the child, with the help of reinforcement and modeling techniques, the child is taught to build certain skills. When it is non-directive play therapy, it is more of open-ended play therapy, where the child is given the toys and child is allowed to lead the session, and the therapist takes a back seat and tries to interpret and understand what the child is playing and reflect this back to the child. So unstructured materials and there are structured materials. What are the importance of this? When it is unstructured materials, there is fantasy development, imagination, room for expressions. But if it is a structured play material, then they do not encourage in free expression. So for example, if it is Ludo or checkers, the child needs to play inside that board, and that itself is the play area, where it is difficult to understand much more. We can understand patterns, however, whatever the concerns of the child, it's difficult to understand. But to be crayons, art, dollhouse, etc., there is much more free expression and helps in development, fantasy, imagination, and it helps in much more expression of the child. Given by Chaitik. So according to him, so is this initial period of non-engagement. Here we need to see instinctualized or under-instinctualized. If the child is over-instinctualized, that is, if the child doesn't think and act and he just runs around everywhere and he doesn't know what to choose, during that time, we need to help in structuring the session. If the child to go forward and select items that he wishes to choose. So this is something that we will have to understand in the initial sessions. Next is the early phase of effective engagement. Here, the child tries to test boundaries with the therapist. The child tries to master the anxiety, tries to develop a relationship with the therapist, becomes much more open in the therapy session. And sometimes the therapist will also might have to join with the child to play in this phase of session. So next is emergence of central fantasies. This is a crucial stage, is what they had explained. So what happens in this phase is, sometimes there will be repetitive play. The child likes to play the same thing again and again and again. This could be one of the major indicators that the child is trying to work through or work towards in gaining mastery with his concerns or problems that the child is facing. So playing this again and again helps in developing mastery, and the child develops when the therapist is along with this process and helps in interpreting and labeling whatever the emotion the child is facing. The child might form a new solution and feels accepted and tries to move through this process. Next stage is period of working through. Here the child has whatever symptoms the child is having, the child might have different underlying meanings for these symptoms. We need to understand what could be the meanings behind this, and we need to understand through all perspective. And once all of this is done, then only we'll be able to move forward. So these are some of the mechanisms of change in therapy. How do we understand that a process of change that we can work through with the child, or how do we understand that this could help the child, and how do we work through it? So Friedman and Russ have given 6 mechanisms of change in therapy. So the first one is catharsis and labeling of feeling. So what happens? A child is trying to play something. Maybe it could be playing with a puppet. It could be explaining that the teacher is scolding the student and the student is feeling sad. And it is explaining all this and playing. What happens? The child could be going through a difficult emotion or a stressful environment, and the child is helping to master or gain competency with this experience. So, to make it less overwhelming, the child could be playing this. And during such situation, labeling what is that emotion called and how maybe the person has felt this. So, reflecting on that and allowing the child to experience that, the catharsis that the child experiences itself is very therapeutic at that moment. So allowing the child to go through that whole experience. This is one of the mechanism of change in therapy. So next one in this same process is corrective emotional experience. So if the child has played something, showed a scenario or showed something that has happened. So for example, a child is angry with his father and trying to explain that the child is angry with his father. And the therapist trying to understand child's reasons for being angry and what could be the reasons behind this and how else could the anger be expressed. What are the ways in which we can express anger and how we can work through. So the emotional experience that the child has faced, helping him in relabeling it and working through it happens, and then the child will be able to accept the experience. Next is insight and working through. Through this whole process of playing, sometimes there are chances the child develops cognitive insight by himself. He tries to understand the cause and effect of his own problems and tries to gain mastery and resolve the difficulties that the child is facing. Learning alternative problem solving techniques and coping strategies through one of the ways, that is, if we try to understand, a child could be going through a lot of concerns, and play is one way where he can express freely, where he can go through all these experiences. So by modeling, the therapist showing the child that this could be one of the way the child can be helped. The child will be able to see alternative problem solving techniques and coping strategies. So this is one of the mechanisms of change in therapy. Development of internal structure. So sometimes it does happen that the child is not very much sure about the difference between himself and the world, difference between the reality and his fantasy. So the relationship between the child and therapist is the reality. But what the child is playing is the imaginal world the child is creating. This itself helps in developing an internal structure within the child. This relationship as well as the child's game, and in this safe environment, the child is able to develop much more safe self-esteem development happens, and this helps the child in moving forward. And there are some non-specific factors that helps in mechanisms of change. The presence of therapist itself makes the child feel that I'm not feeling lonely. I have someone who is there to be with me. Or awareness of parental concern through the process of this puppet game or some other drawing activity or some other way, child could feel that I am supported and I am feeling protected. The child could develop a sense of hope. The process of this play, having someone to play with the child itself, could be supportive and mechanisms of change. So what are some of the creative games that I can play with my child to understand him or her better? So it is not always possible that the child comes and tells everything to us, that this happened in my school or this happened with my friends. So during such time, we need to help the child to express or experience. How many of us really liked it when our parents played with us non-judgmentally? When our parents were there with us when playing? Wasn't it a really good experience when playing non-judgmentally, accepting us completely? So in the same way, if a child gets such a support and environment where the child feels I am accepted, that itself could help in a very much positive growth for the child. So one of these are some of the games that has been well researched and explained that these games could be much more helpful in development of the child. So this toy telephone play. Haven't we played this in our childhood where we talk over the phone with someone and we tell something and the other person tells something? What if you are sitting on the other side of the phone and your child is here and you're talking to the child and the child is pretend playing? That itself helps the child to express a lot of things through this process of pretend play. Next is reenactment or role play. If this happens over telephone, usually telephone works well because it is indirect expression. Next one is reenactment or role play, where there is a little more direct expression, where the child asks you to be the student and the child could be the teacher. And he might be showing a scenario or role, something that has happened. But being non-judgmental and being there in that space itself is very the child. Magic wand and so what happens in this is, so child that you have a wand and you have been given 3 wishes. What do you like to ask in those 3 wishes? So through this, the child could try to express whatever his concerns are. There could be some things fantasy related. I wish to be a Superman. I wish to have superpowers. But what are these superpowers that the child wants to have? And why does he want to have? These could be some things that would help us to understand a little more about the concerns that the child is facing. Sensory play. This is very much helpful with children of a little lower age, where it is helpful in developing their sense organs as well as their touch, maybe hearing, maybe seeing, and different sensory activities could be helpful for a child. Emotion thermometers and so this is one game which helps them in expressing emotions. So first of all, labeling different emotions. What is anger? What is happiness? What is sad? What is fear? So if these 4 are given colors, what would you like to give? Today, where are the 4 colors? If we keep it at this height and this height, how much do you think is anger? Or how much do you think is sadness? The child as well as the parent playing together could itself have a therapeutic value for the child, where the parent is non-judgmental and helping the child to express his emotion, understand his emotion, label his emotion. Next game is mutual. This is a game that is very much used in therapy, where the child builds a story and the child tells that could be that, me and my friend had a fight and it was for this reason. And then I don't know what to do. So this person A doesn't know what to do. Here the parent could come up with the alternative way of the story that, could be that this person is angry because of this reason. So anger could be for different reasons. So maybe if I was in that place, I would have asked to angry. And then the child again continues the story. Okay, this person asks, why are you angry? That other person doesn't talk and goes off. So then the parent again helps the child to move forward or find alternative ways of coping, which could be helpful. So next is puppet play. Puppet play is again very much used in therapy, where we give different puppets and the child is asked to name them and then create a scenario and play with them. Next one is arts and crafts, where we use different forms of colors, crayons, paints, or it could be just paper and pencil, where the child tries to draw and express himself. These could be some of the games, and there are many more games that could be helpful in and have a therapeutic value in expression, freedom of expression of emotions to a child. What are effectiveness of play therapy? Skills, concept formation, divergent thinking, fluency in thinking, problem solving, insight, and cognitive flexibility. Play also helps in affective processes, that is helping to understand emotions, symbols, and themes of it and expressing it. Play helps in adjustment, that there is flexibility of thought, which could help in not developing a mental set in future, as well as academic adjustment and also coping with stress. It also helps in divergent thinking, where there is free flow of association and also manipulation of object representation, how the child sees the world and how it can be helped with, recombining ideas and how it can be substituted. Express and experience positive and effect, and also in problem solving, resolving conflicts and gaining a mastery over these conflicts is very much necessary. And then comes the cognitive structure, whatever the emotional regulation that the child would like to develop, that could be helped through play. And it also develops coping skills and helps in developing interpersonal behavior. So what are some of the clinical applications? So there are different clinical conditions with which play therapy has very much effective use. Researchers have proved that with emotional difficulties like anxiety, depression, anger, which could be separation anxiety for specifically, there are very much research that has proved that this is very much helpful. And speech and language difficulties have also proved that play therapy is very much helpful. ADHD and conduct disorder, and some situational difficulties, some conditions that the child is facing, for example, death in family, divorce, hospitalization, illness, victim of a natural disaster. In such situation, to make meaning of these experiences, to express, to help in the catharsis, and to move forward, play therapy could be a way through which the child understands and gains mastery through these experiences. Abused and neglected children have gained a lot of help through play therapy, which could be sexual abuse, physical abuse, or any other kind of abuse. PTSD has also shown good results with play therapy. So now I'll be talking about a case study where there is Miss P, who is aged 11 years, studying in 4th standard from Bangalore. So the father is 38-year-old and mother is 36-year-old, and brother is 17-year-old. So it is a family of 4 members, and parents have separated 2 years ago, and child stayed with father and brother, and she also had her grandparents. So this was a situation where the child was living, and the child had come for play therapy. So the child was in play therapy for over 1.5 to 2 years, where the sessions were weekly once or sometimes fortnight once. So the child presented with complaints of inattention, hyperactivity, excessive talk, not doing homework, not paying attention in class since past 2 years, temperamentally a difficult child, active in extracurricular activities. So in the when I had seen the child had come with the parent, and the child was diagnosed of ADHD and not sitting in one place. And the concern was how to involve child in play therapy. So the child was not interested to sit in one place. So later, as I spoke about the processes of play therapy, with this child, started mainly with building a relationship with the therapist and the child. So a positive relationship, a non-judgmental, acceptable, empathetic relationship with the child itself helped in containing the child in a playroom. So later that we try to help the child in going through difficult, we try to understand what are the toys that we need to keep in the playroom. And once the toys were kept and helping the child to, the child was overstimulated, so we had to structure for the child the playroom. So we had to bring some boundaries and set some limits where breaking of toys is not allowed or showing aggression towards the therapist is not allowed. So except these, the child was allowed to play in any way the child wanted. So the therapist was also a part with the play that the child was playing. And through these processes, the child tried to gain mastery over the experiences the child had had. So through these, the child was able to involve in the play activity, and the child was whatever difficulties the child was going through, she tried to experience and express the whole difficulties. And a non-specific factor of relationship with the therapist was the major way, as well as reflection and interpretation of the emotions that she had felt, and corrective explanation of that was another major way through which the child was able to gain the mastery of change through the process. And after around 1.5 years to 2 years, the child was able to form a healthy relationship, interpersonal relationship with others, and was also having very good, better communication skills, also following a structure and boundary in sessions as well as outside. So whatever development happened in the sessions were very healthily transferred to the outside scenario, and this helped in the development of the child. So this is one of the case study that I wanted to share, where play therapy was majorly used as well as art therapy was also used to help the child gain mastery over the experience and to build a relationship and help in developing esteem and use these skills in the outside world. So I guess if there are any questions, we can take it now. Would anyone wish to talk about it? Talk about the questions that you have? So I think I have tried to give an overall structure of play therapy by explaining how the process goes on and trying to understand what are the different plays that can be used with children.
Thank you so much, Shweta, for an enlightening session on play therapy. There are a few questions in the chat box, so I request participants, they can unmute themselves and ask questions to our speaker today. You can also ask questions through the chat box. There are a few questions that are mentioned in the chat box that we can read it out for you. If somebody want to unmute yourself, please unmute yourself and you can ask the question. One of the questions that, even I had in my mind is, how can we inculcate during this COVID situation where one-to-one sessions are not entirely possible due to the social distancing issue? How do we inculcate play therapy in times where life is online at the moment?
Okay. So this is a major challenge for therapy. So there was a child I was seeing during the process of play therapy, and when COVID-19 pandemic started, so physical representation is very much important for the child. But the idea of someone is there with me is also enough. Since the rapport and initial stages were already built, it was easy for me to move forward with talking with the child through an online platform, and child playing by herself and helping her understand that what is the situation. Here we had to explain many things. So many complaints that we would get were during the pandemic situation, children were not able to play outside. They had to play inside, and it was a new normal for everyone. So helping the child make meaning of it. And as you told, during this process, how do we move forward with it? I understand we can't do this physical one-to-one play therapy room and sessions. However, the games that have been mentioned and understanding these processes can be done at home. It doesn't always need a therapist. But with the therapist, it would be preferable to have a more face-to-face session. So because a lot of interaction-based activities would be a little more difficult when it is online platform. However, if the child is at the level where the child is able to be in an online platform, if we can assess that the child has the ability, then an online platform can also be taken. But it is preferable to keep it more face to face. I hope I have answered.
Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anusha here.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, it was a very great presentation. I loved it. It was very simple yet so effective.
Thank you.
And I just had one point. Actually, I know a parent with a kid of 2-year-old, and the kid has actually had started saying words. He has started saying all the other words, but he is like not using the word mother.
Okay.
Except that he's saying anything like everything else, like even he is able to grasp words from other languages also,
Mm.
but he is like not saying the word mother like in any language
Mm.
of the mother.
Mm.
And the mother is of both Indian origin, and she is now in Canada, so she speaks both English and Tamil. So the kid is not saying anything to her, only to the father. Like when he speaks,
Hmm. Hello. Yeah, I
sorry,
can hear you.
when he speaks, speaking only to the father and not the mother, like not much to the mother. So thing about, is there any challenge here?
Okay. So to understand a little more about the developmental meaning that the child has found. So, as we know, the transitional object or the way the child sees mother, the way the child and the mother relationship since childhood, that is since time and later, how it has progressed is something that we will have to understand could have an impact, as well as also understanding if there are any other difficulties that the child could be facing. So, as we know, usually mother is a word which has same syllables in different Indian languages. So, in that way, if there is any speech related difficulty, the syllable the child is not able to, is it only specifically with the mother or with females of the same age or with some other male, or the child is having relationship only? We might have to understand a little more concerns because there could be different factors that could be leading to this. And however, just at this age, we won't be able to say much on this because the child is still 2 years old and the child is still in the developmental phase. And we might not be able to predict or tell much about what could be the concerns, and we might require a little more time.
Actually, he's quite acquainted with his that is mother-in-law and her own mom, but only to her he's not saying anything. Like he says mama, he like talks to the other grandma also, but only to mom, like he is not using the word mom at all in any language, not ma, amma, or mom. No, he is not using the word alone.
Can he recognize mother? Can he or she recognize mother, or when there is a need, look at mother?
He does. He does when he's like he needs food, he runs to her and all that. But
Okay.
only at times, like while like talking while he plays, at that time she's completely with him. But during that time, he only talks about. I mean, like he only says words like about his toys, about his dad or mama and all, but like not about mom. She's very concerned that my kid is like saying all the other words except mom.
Right. We can understand that the difficulty, the pain that the mother might go through because of this process, that the child has been not telling her name or not recognizing. It is a very much important milestone for a mother. But here we need to understand what could be the reason for the child. Is it the relationship issues, or is it speech difficulty, or is there something else which requires a thorough assessment?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One of the questions given in the chat box is how it's effective for PTSD. Can you give an example, event, or situation?
Okay. So PTSD is, as we know, the child could have undergone a trauma, which could be physical, sexual, or any other way. So the child could be reliving the experience, which could be very much painful. For an adult itself, it is very much more painful and difficult to experience the whole process. So the child going through such strong and big emotions at an age becomes very difficult. So making meaning of the whole experience itself is the child tries to avoid it, which could make the experience come back again and again. So here the child has difficulty in developing a trustful relationship with new people. Could be also the child tries to safeguard himself or herself and not allow new person to enter. So first thing, a rapport between the therapist and child slowly building is very much important. Where there is non-judgmentality and allowing the child completely use the play materials however he or she wants. So once the child feels trust, once the child feels mastery in the environment, then only the child will move forward to the next stage where the child slowly opens up slowly a little lesser experiences and tries to see how the therapist reacts. So every experience the child expresses, it could be small or big, it needs to be accepted and validated and reflected and help the child interpret and name these emotions and make meaning out of it. In the same way, once the child gains trust in the process, in the therapy room, in the whole experience of play therapy, where he feels he is in control and he is not controlled by somebody else, then only the child will start talking about much more difficult emotional process. So that's when the child, which will take a lot more time, and that's when the whole process of play therapy, depending on the child's temperament, needs to be taken forward, and then it would help in gaining mastery over the experience. And the reliving could be difficult, so a little more combination through other therapeutic modes might also be necessary, where play itself could not be enough, where talk therapy or communication therapy could also be needed if the child is willing to and is comfortable, and help him make meaning. And that itself will help in resolving the process. It could be a little more longer. It might take a very much long period and time, but however, it is a better and safe space for the child to express himself or herself and move forward. Any other questions?
Thank you, Shweta.
Ma'am, just one small question, ma'am. 3 years kid, even if you say small things like do not do this, immediately she gets angry and she's not talking to anyone for some time. For example, if she jumps on the bed, if you say don't do this, immediately she get anchors. For every small things, she get anchor. So how can we handle this?
Okay.
Just
So
she's a 2.5 to 3 years kid.
Okay. So any process has a stimulus and response. The child is doing something and we respond in a certain way. So what we try to see is what the child is doing and we don't see our response to it. So the child could be doing something and we say that don't do it. So how do you think we can tell it in a different way? This is just one way of seeing the situation. How do you think we can tell it in a different way than telling don't do it? What can we say?
Okay, ma'am. Thanks. But even
No,
very softly, softly, even if you say also, whatever we say against to her, she is not accepting it immediately. And
okay,
bringing
so
back to her normal situation, it is difficult for some time.
child's temperament could be an issue here. So the way we deal is also important. When we child don't do something, telling what can be done, an alternative way is usually helpful. If a child is spoiling some toy or hitting, instead of hitting that, why don't we hit this? You and me together, why don't we hit the pillow? How do you think that sounds? So joining with her to her expression, but in a better way. What would be the alternative? Could be helpful at some moment. That is, if you do this, you might not get this. Or if you do something good, you will appreciate it. So, this could be one way that we can help in shaping the behavior. Also, the way we respond is something that can be changed in helping the child changing the behavior.
Sure, ma'am. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, this play therapy, is it only used as a assessment process, or after you assess the the child's problem, then we'll have to go ahead with any other counseling therapy process, or only play therapy itself is going to resolve the problem, like maybe um, PTSD or a sexual abuse or whatever the child must have been undergone, right? So is it we are going to only assess it through play therapy, or we'll have to add on some other therapy for that? Please, if you can guide.
So, play therapy in itself is helpful in resolving the difficulties that the child goes through. So, in play, there is communication as well. The child does talk, the child does express what he is going through. But how much we talk is something that we will have to see. Sometimes the child might feel very much overpowered, or sometimes the child is not wanting to talk and express only through play. If that is a medium of the child, then play therapy is a very good medium in helping the child making expression. So, as I told in the past case study, only play therapy was used in helping the child making meaning of situation and moving forward. So, play therapy in itself is helpful. It is not just for assessment, it is a whole therapy in itself. But if the child has better cognitive ability and is willing for communication therapy, then we can use other methods. If not, the child is comfortable in play therapy, we can use play therapy in itself is enough.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shweta. I now request Suresh sir, if he is available, Suresh sir, to please give vote of thanks for today's session. Okay, I guess Suresh sir is not able to join. Salim sir, are you available?
Yes.
Salim sir, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can hear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm available, don't worry.
Shubha ma'am, yes ma'am. Lovely to have you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shweta. It was a wonderful session. We really enjoyed, and the way you conducted the entire presentation, no, that was really awesome. Connecting with all the real life examples also, and you were also able to give a lot of connections from theoretical inputs also. And I'm really happy to have you here. And please accept our gratitude from Department of Psychology, American College, Madurai, as well as the collaborators, Madras School of Social Work, Chennai, and MEMS Challamuthu Rehabilitation Trust from Madurai, and Red Pond Academy, and as well as the other collaborators too. Thank you so much, and so nice of you for your wonderful presentation. And we were very calm and composed in your presentation. I really enjoyed that way you dealt well.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, as well as so much kind words. It really made me feel good. And also, I hope I have been helpful in some way. And if anybody does want to get in touch with me regarding any of the concerns, since I do on offline sessions as well, they can contact me. I think one of the coordinators, Ekta, would be able to give my contact and I can move forward with concerns as well because I wasn't able to answer most of the questions. So I think I would be able to help in other way.
Yeah, please. Please give your email ID or contact number in the chat box so that it will be useful for the people who are really wanted to consult you.
Surely, surely.
Thank you, Sweta.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Shweta, you can type your email ID in the chat box.
I am not
And
able
then-
to. Can I send you?
Yeah, okay, please share it with me and I'll share it. Participants, we'll share it in the group if you like, and if there is anybody, they can always contact me to get Shweta's contact. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shweta.
Put my email ID. I think it would be helpful to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweta ma'am, you are the host now, so if you close the session, it will be closed actually. You have to close it, I think. Okay, thank you.
I'm just figuring out. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.